Anaïs and Lisa have a lot in common. Both are extremely intelligent for their age. Although they are girls, they show a maturity that contrasts with the immaturity of their families. Often their intelligence is not valued by their family or their environment. Both tend to question what happens around them. But why is one super hated while the other is loved? Let's see, but first leave your requests in the comments. Anaïs is a character who stands out for her remarkable intelligence, capable of surpassing even that of the adults around her. This ability allows her to analyze situations very quickly and find creative solutions that others overlook, as her intellectual maturity not only contrasts with the carefree attitude of those around her, but also creates unique moments where logic prevails.
And in the face of the chaos within this series, as up the calculated option can reveal that despite her young age, she possesses a brilliant mind that acts as a guide amid the confusion.
This
Sharpness is complemented by her sarcastic personality, which brings dynamism and a touch of mischief to her role, as the character is not afraid to point out
or what others avoid saying, using direct phrases that expose uncomfortable truths, but always with a touch that balances criticism with humor, as that wit turns their interventions into memorable moments because
manages to convey reasoning
and entertainment without losing her childlike essence, having the relationship she maintains with her surroundings also pointing out what makes her stand out. While some of her peers tend to act impulsively or distractedly, she takes on a more rational and structured role, becoming a point of balance within the group. This contrast does not make her cold or distant, but rather highlights her ability to remain calm even in such absurd circumstances, giving her that almost indispensable role in the family dynamic. Despite all that maturity, she is still very much a child because her sweet appearance, her gentle voice, and her small size create a charming contrast. With her intellectual capacity, that duality between innocence and lucidity enhances her charisma. She is capable of being the brightest mind in the room, yet without losing her childlike essence.
something important about that mix of sweetness and sagacity is what makes each of her interventions carry special weight within the story.
In a story that really overuses absurd humor without needing to exaggerate or blur with the character's age. Now with Lisa, she is a character who over time has awakened a very negative perception, but due to various aspects that are part of her character development. Although she possesses admirable qualities like intelligence and a constant pursuit of justice, the way she expresses them often turns them into traits that make others uncomfortable, says Ada. One of the main problems lies in the way she conveys her principles. She tends to impose her values in a rigid and inflexible manner, adopting a moralistic attitude that places her in a position of superiority over others. It is a behavior far from inspiring understanding. It generates friction and makes interactions with an environment seem more like a lesson than a natural coexistence. To this can be added the contradiction between what she defends and how she acts. She advocates for just causes and constantly seeks to be that example of virtue, but on numerous occasions resorts to manipulation, lies, or personal convenience to achieve her goals. This duality in her behavior projects an incoherent image because she presents herself as a role model but does not always apply her own rules. This lack of congruence undermines the authenticity she tries to convey and turns her into a character who seems to talk more than she acts. Another key point is the way her intelligence is presented to those around her. Instead of being a tool for collective growth, it becomes a resource to stand out and create distance. The constant need to be recognized as the smartest in any situation makes her appear arrogant and, in many cases, lacking empathy. The brilliance that could be her greatest virtue ends up being perceived as pretentiousness, creating a barrier that prevents her relationships from flowing naturally. Emotional disconnection also plays an important role. She tends to reject or minimize the simple things that bring balance to an environment, like her family's chaotic humor or the trivial experiences that, although imperfect, build bonds. In her attempt to rise above what she considers banal, she loses the ability to fully integrate and places herself in an isolated space. This distinction does not make him stronger nor her more admirable, but rather reinforces the image of someone incapable of connecting with what is happening around them. Altogether, these facets form a portrait of a character who, despite having interesting foundations that could be explored, ends up generating rejection due to the way they interact with their world. The rigidity of his ideals, the lack of coherence in his own action, the great arrogance with which he displays his intellect, and the difficulty in emotionally adapting create a profile that is hard to genuinely appreciate. Instead of balancing his environment, he often creates tension. And the tension is precisely what makes that figure an object of continuous criticism. Anaïs stands out as a character who uniquely combines tenderness, intelligence, and charisma. And throughout Gumball's story, she is constantly seen interacting with her family, maintaining a relationship that, although full of small arguments and annoying moments, is also imbued with genuine affection. Her dynamic with Gumball and Darwin reflects that balance between the impatience she sometimes feels due to their lack of maturity and the genuine concern she shows in those important moments. It's a mix of love and frustration that feels relatable and authentic, showing that their bond is far from perfect but deep and real. On the other hand, she brings a comedic versatility that makes her stand out. She doesn't just play the role of the child prodigy, she's able to adapt to the most absurd scenarios without losing her essence. It's a contrast between her intelligence and her involvement in ridiculous situations, creating that balance that enriches every scene, revealing that even the most sensible character can shine amidst chaos. Aces! That ability to move between logic and madness adds a certain freshness and prevents her personality from being ruined in a single role. The character also represents a female figure that could be said to break certain stereotypes. Also, kahit pasal sa tipos andams. She's clever, strong, and funny without her role feeling forced at all, not even pretentious. Her strength is not in being serious or authoritative, but in showing that she can be childish, cunning, and resilient at the same time. This makes her an example of balance. Baing teste, dari teste, tagse, between intellectual maturity and the spontaneity typical of her age, showing that strength is not always measured by aggressiveness, but also by the ability to stand firm without losing oneself. Additionally, her frustration arises in the face of the immaturity around her. It is one of the traits that most define her personality. She desires order, coherence, and the minimum of logic in an environment that perhaps rarely offers it. It is a contrast that she internally struggles with to accept the chaos or try to correct it, which makes her deeper, as it ceases to be a vulnerable facet for someone who, despite her intelligence, does not always manage to control what happens around her. Instead of portraying her as someone perfect, these reactions give her strength, allowing her to be perceived as a character who also gets tired, gets angry, and seeks a bit of stability amid some confusion, but is likable. Now, with Lisa, she is that character who generates a lot of division for other reasons that I will tell you directly with what could be her personality and the way she evolves throughout this series. Urgis is known for her intelligence and for having a high sense of morality, but those same characteristics, instead of always being admired, have been a reason for rejection. Her pedantic attitude is one of the most little factors. On multiple occasions, she uses her intellect not only to solve problems, not at all, but also to stand out over others. That constant need to show that she knows more than her family, friends, or any authority figure makes her seem like a very arrogant character even when her intentions are good. This trait can convey the idea that she looks down on everyone from a position of superiority, creating discomfort among those around her. Adding to this attitude is her emotional disconnection from her surroundings. Although she possesses very noble values and seeks to do good, she often seems unable to enjoy the simple things or integrate into the very chaos that defines her family. Her tendency must be exactly rational or critical, which emotionally separates her from those who try to get close, projecting the feeling that she considers others less important or less evolved. This not only isolates but also strengthens the image that she believes she is better than the rest, making her someone difficult to love. Additionally, to her positive qualities, another important point that has contributed to the negative perception of her is the way her role was reinforced with more recent themes in the early seasons. She maintains a balance between being the smartest and most sensitive girl who offered moments of tenderness and humor and being the voice of reason within a very problematic family, but over time she became almost exclusively a vehicle for activism and political correctness speeches. Instead of her values emerging organically, her personality became more preachy and less fun, which made get at her lost part of her initial humanity and freshness. This can also cause wear, as her character began to feel more like a narrative tool to convey moral messages rather than a character with real depth. In summary, she is mainly hated because her intelligence, instead of inspiring, often becomes a weapon that distances others. Her emotional disconnection creates a barrier that prevents empathy, and the forced evolution of her character into an excessively moralistic figure has moved away from that initial balance that made her endearing. This combination of cunning, coldness, and overexploitation as a symbol of external causes to the story has made her, for many, lose that initial charm and unfortunately become a character that generates more rejection than sympathy. For these aspects, both characters can end up being compared in the public's perception, but you can leave your point of view.
I invite you to watch more of my videos. I know you'll love them.